It is officially 7 p.m. So I am going to call to order our September 9th, 2024 FinCom meeting. Good evening, everyone. Hi, Dr. O'Neill.
Good evening.
Good evening. Quickly before we get started, I just want to welcome our two new members. I see one of them right now. Welcome Gavin Cabbage. We also have another new member, Brandon Noble. I believe he is joining us this evening. So welcome to the fun. You're gonna love it.
Thanks.
Okay. I believe Dr. O'Neill is on our agenda first to give us an update on the school budget and see how things shook out over the summer. So if you want to take it from here.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. As I've shared with the school committee at our summer meetings, which typically we do not have summer meetings, we're usually off through September, but we did meet twice this summer, once in July following the ballot vote, and then just again before school started at the very end of August. We've had a number of staffing changes over the course of the summer. I do have a couple things that I'd like to share with you. If
Dr. O'Neill, could I interrupt you really quick? I'm so rusty. It's been a couple months. I didn't take attendance. Can I do that?
Oh, no,
really
we're
quick?
good. Yep, sorry. I was just chatting away.
I was like, oh no. All right, sorry everyone. Okay, attendance. That's important. Kevin Bouguet. I do not see Kevin. Gavin.
Hello, here.
Hello, Gavin is here.
Yep.
Trace.
Here.
All right. Brandon. Have you joined us, Brandon?
Yes, hello.
All right, hello. Welcome. Sandy.
Here.
Bill.
Here. Here.
Paul. Zach.
Here.
Bonnie.
Here.
And I too am here. All right, sorry about that, everyone. Jen. Yes, you can share your screen. I think
All
that's what
right,
you were
perfect.
starting to
Thank
ask.
you. Give me 1 second. I'm a little rusty. But let me just, I'm going to share a couple things with you that I've actually shared with the school committee as well. So this is items that have been discussed during our last few meetings. So we had a number of staffing changes. These are all since our town meeting in May. Since town meeting in May, we've had 5 retirements, 12 resignations, 4 requests from full-time staff members to go part-time, and then 2 requests for a leave of absence for the school year. I think it's important for me to share this with you because all of these took place after we did our budget for that 1% increase. So we were not anticipating any of these changes when we met at our town meeting in May, or kind of really leading up to the end of the school year. These, a few of the retirements even came in like a week or 2 before school started. So sharing that with you so that way you can see what our changes were. A number of these retirements are people that have been in the district for a long period of time and were at a certain level of salary. In almost all of these cases, we have been able to hire new staff members at a lower rate. Of course, it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes you lose a middle school science teacher who maybe has been here for 5 or 6 years, and then you have to backfill them with someone who maybe is not as inexpensive. Science and math, those are the areas where it's really difficult to find people, especially at the last minute. Some of you may have heard that we, even this week or last week, we were still missing a 5th grade teacher. We are very happy to have someone in the classroom now with our students this morning, but you really can't predict some of these changes. So those are some of the staffing changes that have taken place since town meeting. I've also shared with the school committee over the last 2 meetings is that as we've gone through and hired new staff members to take over these positions. Christine has been doing an incredible job of kind of keeping track of where we are financially. So for example, if we had a retirement where a teacher left and was making $80,000 and we were able to hire someone at $50,000, that is a direct savings of $30,000 to our budget. As I shared with our families this week in my first, official newsletter of the year, any of those changes that were made, we have done within the 1% budget. There has been no additional spending to our actual budget. So when we take a look at what we have available, I'm going to share another item with you here. This is the document that we've been sharing with school committee, and it goes through those summer changes. So since town meeting, these are the savings that we have that were unanticipated savings. I'm not going to walk you through every item. I will share this with you, Paula, so you have it. But ultimately, when we get down to the bottom of our document here, we had a total of $337,525 in unanticipated staffing changes this summer. With that, we were able to bring back the 6th nurse for Norton Schools. For those of you who have perhaps heard me talk this summer and also late last spring, the nursing position was one of the ones that I was the most concerned about. We have a number of students district-wide that have really significant medical needs, whether they're using a feeding tube throughout the course of the day that requires a nurse to help them, or we have many students that have diabetes. The nurse is constantly monitoring their sugar intake throughout the course of the day and providing them with whether it's food or medication should they need to adjust. So we were able to hire back that one nurse. Additionally, we also brought back 2 paraprofessionals, and those were specific to student need. These were in both cases students that are brand new to Norton Public Schools. We did not anticipate their specific learning needs prior to setting our budget for the upcoming year. So those were 2 hires. So as many of you have heard me say, we laid off 29 staff members. The recall of the nurse and the 2 paraprofessionals brings that number of 29 down to 26, all within that same budget. We've also spent $65,000 on network security upgrades. The second to last day of school, we had a network issue in which we had bad actors kind of dive in and take over our network. These security upgrades that you see here are necessary for us to be back online for this school year, and also necessary for us to be able to protect the personal information of our students and our staff. We're very fortunate that at this time, there was no information, personal identifiable information that was taken or published on the dark web. So we're very, very fortunate that we kind of got out of the situation, but we do need to upgrade our network. So that was done as well, which leads us to about $134,000 of savings that is not allocated at this time, and nor do we really plan on putting that money towards anything right now. As you can see, a lot changes day to day, minute to minute. So it's my recommendation to the committee that we kind of hang on to this overage, the $134,000 that we have, just in case we have other needs that come up through the course of the year. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Dr. O'Neill, the 134,000, could that be used as like the contingency for any kind of special needs changes that are made?
Yep, that's really why we're saving it, Paula, to be honest. We can never predict what student needs are going to change throughout the course of the year, or perhaps students that may move into our community that we may now be responsible for either fully funding or partially funding their education. So I personally am not comfortable with really spending any more of that at this time, and we'll use it for contingencies as they arise throughout the course of the year. And the other thing that I've shared with school committee, if I had $330,000 arrive in my, checkbook this week, that would be a life-changing amount. But when you take a look at it, across the whole $34 million budget, it's actually not a lot of money, and it goes quick. So we are being very careful about our spending at this time.
Madam
Makes
Chair.
sense. Yes, Steve.
But just on the cyber incident, and we had to upgrade our equipment, is that a proactive approach or a reactive approach? And how do we assess ongoing what we have? I know we have a consultant that reviews some information where the schools have their own kind of department, networking department. Can you explain a little bit about what the oversight is, the review, and making sure that we're current in our technology?
Yep, absolutely, Steve. Thanks. This is actually a really great question. So the way that our network security has been done in the past, we have a team of 4 people. We have one network director, a director of instructional technology. We have a network technician and 2 network technicians and a network administrator. So you think we have roughly a little under 400 staff members. We have about 2,500 students. That's nearly 3,000 people. Every staff member, every student has their own device. That's a huge amount of hardware and software that is the responsibility of our department. We actually lost 2 positions as part of the 26 that I was referring to earlier that were technology integration specialists that worked in classrooms with teachers, helping them to utilize technology in appropriate ways. So that's the department. And then, of course, we have software and other resources to help protect our systems. We have a huge amount of personal information that is shared within our systems. We have a student information system that has student names, addresses, birthdays, parents, emails, phone numbers, all sorts of things. We're very fortunate that the large majority of our items actually live on the cloud. So we don't actually host a lot of those things in our own network. And that was probably the saving grace for this incident, was that once they logged in and accessed our network, there wasn't a lot for them to really take. So our department has spent a lot of time over the years moving a lot of these things into a cloud-based system. Number one, for accessibility, especially during COVID. We couldn't access our network computers when we were all working from home. So having things on the cloud was really beneficial. But also for a safety measure for these types of incidents that people can't really access. The technology department within Norton Public Schools has been asking for some of these upgrades over the last few years. This is not the first time we have been hit by bad actors, as they're called. Really, these people are terrorists, and they are trying to hold our information ransom. It wasn't the first time. It probably won't be the last. And I say that because every single time and I say we as education in general, not just Norton Public Schools, this has happened to a lot of my colleagues in other districts. Every time we upgrade and choose security measures that are more impactful and more difficult to get around, these terrorists just get smarter and smarter, and they find ways around all of these things. We're very fortunate that we were able to get back up and running as quickly as we did, thanks to Mike and to the staff at Town Hall. The school in town had an insurance policy for these type of cyber attacks, which was a saving grace for us. We were able to access our insurance policy. We worked with a company that was able to, number one, cut off the access to these terrorists. Number two, help us to rebuild our network and get re-access all of our information and access our backup servers. And then also give us legal advice on how we can move forward as well. So thank you to Mike and to his team for getting the town itself a pretty comprehensive insurance policy. I have a colleague that they ended up having to handwrite paychecks for people for 10 months because they could not access any of their network, any of their information for almost an entire year, and they had to rebuild everything. We are very fortunate that this was not the case. So to go back to your original question, Steve, I hope you don't feel like I'm talking you in circles. I'm just trying to give you some background. Is this preventative or reactive? The answer is yes. It's honestly both. It's updating what we had that was clearly not sufficient enough, and also hoping that the new systems and structures that we've put in place will be beneficial. The department has been asking for this for a long time. It's one of those things that when you have a tight budget, it doesn't always get moved to the top. We just simply can't go through another incident like that. And therefore, looking at the savings, that was something that we decided to do. And that was my recommendation to the committee.
No, I appreciate it. And Mike, from the from the claim on the cyber insurance perspective, was there any concerns about where we were as far as baseline from the coverage for the insurance folks?
Not yet. We haven't heard too much in terms of how they want us to move forward. I do anticipate that we will probably need to make some changes within the department in order for us to move forward. So for example, some of the things that we've done this year that we're starting to implement with our staff is two-factor authentication. So many of you might be familiar with this. If you go online to pay your credit card bill, they'll ask you if it's you, and they'll text you a code. And then you have to enter the code in my mind, I'm like, if somebody wants to pay my credit card bill, please let them. But typically they're just trying to confirm you are who you say you are. And so we're doing a lot of that with our staff. And then we also received a grant for cyber training, which it could not be more timely. Ultimately, we found that this came from a staff member clicking on a bad link. So whether it was in an email where they said, hey, I found this for you, you should check it out, or it was a bad website or something along those lines. That's why the education aspect is really important. And I apologize, my dogs are barking.
No, that's good, Dr. Renil. So that was gonna be my next question, how this was found. Was it a person thing or was it a technology thing? So
It was unfortunately an individual clicking on the wrong link. And I actually shared with our school community last week as part of the grant process, there is something that people outside of the education field could do. So I'd be happy to share that with Paula if you guys wanted to go in and share, either A, go through the training yourself, or B, share it with somebody that you think could benefit from it. It's a really great free training, and helps you to kind of understand what to look for. We're all so quick to click a link if we think we know the person. But there's a lot of people out there that are always, trying to catch us.
right. No, I appreciate it, because I think a lot of these insurance companies now, education is key, but to your point, I see a lot of them pushing back if you don't have multi-factor authentication or dual pushes type things. So I'm glad
Absolutely.
we're going in that direction. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else have questions for Dr. O'Neill?
I just want to share a couple other things with you if you guys are all set with the budget aspect things, but I can answer any questions from there first.
Madam Chair, I got a couple things on the
Yeah.
budget.
Go ahead, Zach.
Dr. O'Neill,
Hi, Zach.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I did watch the school committee meeting the other day on the TV, and on a side note, somebody needs to fix the audio because it's almost impossible to try to make out what you guys are saying on these. I'm not sure if it's the media center or whoever's doing it, but
So we're actually, through the kindness of Mr. Unetz, we will be using the new town hall conference space in a few short weeks. So hopefully that will be a better dynamic for everyone listening from home. We'll do our tour of the schools first, and then we'll be at the new town hall.
well, that would be great. Hopefully, they did a good job and spent our money wisely. We get a high
I'm sure they did.
definition, Dolby audio acoustics. Anyway, I saw your meeting the other day, and for me, we just had an election. I think the people have spoke loudly, resounding margin, that they want us to live within the budget. Anybody that in town that hasn't heard that, I think is probably tone deaf. But then I said we have $350 savings, and I was, to be honest with you, disappointed that we brought anybody back. I mean, the most you're gonna get, if you're lucky, is 3% next year. So we're bringing these people back in order to lay them off in the spring, most likely, unless some act of God comes and bails us out. I'm not sure why we're doing that. To be honest with you, for me, I don't think that, I think the people have spoken, and I don't, even though, I agree with everything you're saying, but the budget cuts weren't deep enough to begin with. I mean, people spoke loud and clear. It's time to rip off the Band-Aid, restructure to deliver what the voters asked for. And I'm just here, we're just kicking the can down the road again by saying, all right, we got a couple bucks. And as you said earlier, 150,000 cushion is absolutely nothing on a $35 million plus budget. It's not even a rounding error. And we're bringing people back in order to go through that drip, drip, drip again in the spring, which I don't think it's fair to the employees. I don't think it's fair to you. And I don't think it's fair to the townspeople. I think it's people have spoken, rip the Band-Aid off, adjust to the budget at hand, knowing what your contractual obligations are, what your steps and lanes are going to be. And if somebody retires, well, then you can deal with that at that point. But, I just don't believe in running a budget right to the cent when you don't know where your next check's coming from. And that's
Zach,
my 2 cents on it.
I appreciate that. And honestly, I couldn't agree with you more. When it comes to those 2 paraprofessionals, we don't have the choice, right? Those are specific to student need. A student comes in from another community. They now are a Norton resident. They have in their IEP that they need a one-to-one paraprofessional for whatever reason. We had no flexibility in those 2 positions at all. The only position that was a choice to bring back was that district nurse. And I think that in the spring, we're going to have to look very carefully at what our budget is and what our numbers are. Because ultimately, I think we'll have to cut something else if we do not have the funding to keep the nurse. Because I really am concerned about the student health and safety without that extra person. It is very, very difficult for us to find substitute nurses. It's number one, it's very difficult to find substitute teachers. I think we might want to start thinking about the whole jury process, how people are, summoned to jury duty. We might have to start summoning people to substitute teach across the country because we cannot find people to sub. It makes it even more challenging when you're looking for a specific skill set. For example, in this school nurse, we have nurses who have obviously their own medical needs, their own family commitments. Things come up from time to time. And we have students that it's not safe for them to be in the building without a school nurse. And so therefore, that makes me really nervous because then if we call a parent and say, hey, the nurse isn't here, it's really not safe for your child to be here, we're denying them access. I think that's something that we've had a lot of conversations about within our leadership team. And we also understand that potentially we would have to look at what else could be eliminated in order to save that position moving forward. But I couldn't agree with you more. That cushion is extremely small, as you said. It makes me nervous that that's what we're looking at right now. There have been comments, requests. Why didn't we bring back world language? Why didn't we bring back band? Why didn't, you guys see social media, right? I can back the nurse. I can feel good about making that decision. I can defend it because I really was concerned about the students' health and safety. I can't do that right now with any of our other positions.
I agree with you 100% what you're saying. I always said many times in this committee, and people disagree with me, which is fine, is the protection of life and property should always be first. And that's why I back, not that, I have anything against the schools. As you know, I have a child in the system and my wife's an educator, but that should always comes first. And I would argue that that position should have never been eliminated to begin with. Something else, and again, I don't get involved in the day-to-day operations of your school. I got enough of my own going on to not know what's going on there. if that was priority, it should have never been, eliminated to begin with. Something else should have been, foregone. But one other question I have on budget, and then we can move on, is, because somebody asked me about it, is the train project. That is completely done now. Everything's running, solar, we're 100%.
So I would say we're roughly 96%. There is a very small punch list, so to speak, of things that need to be updated or brought to, full completion. The project is considered substantially complete. So for those of you who have been involved with building projects in the past, substantially complete is that big check mark. There are very small things that are still on that list, but all of our solar panels are up and running. We are online with all of that. All of our systems are online. There are just a few things that need to be completed so Christine and then Wade Lazat, who is our director of facilities, are working on that list with Train, and we should have an update to 100% completion in the very near future.
Okay, so on the budget end of that, it was sold to us, and not only us, but the community, as cost neutral. That whatever money we put in, we'd get it in savings. So the town borrowed money to do all these projects. The town is paying back the notes. How is that? How do we square that accounting? Is that coming out of the school budget and going back to the town? How is that all? That's A, and the B part of that question is, how are we assuring that the so-called guaranteed savings that they had promised are actually being seen?
So that's kind of a multi-step answer, and I'm going to give you the best that I can give, and then I'm going to let Christine jump in where I forgot certain things. And full disclosure, we both inherited the train project and weren't involved with some of the conversations at the front end. So we're catching up a little bit too. So ultimately, at the end of the year, we sent back a large amount of funding to the town as part of our end of the year funds. And I'm going to let Christine give you the number because I don't want to misspeak. And I have a number in my head, but I'm not exactly positive if that's it. To the town as part of our savings in utilities. Additionally, we receive checks from the solar at the LG North. So those checks come in, I believe on a quarterly basis. Those are immediately signed over to the town, and Mike and James process those as part of income on the town side. The other 4 buildings, the way that those are run is it is credits. That solar is transferred into credits. Christine and I met with Mike and James last Friday. We had a great meeting. And one of the conversations that we had was, we have a lot of credits as a community. We have the solar credits from the school project. We have solar credits from the other solar place that's over Clapp Street, I believe. Does that sound right? Oh, Mike, you're muted.
I think it's the one on Hill Street.
Yeah, the
Oh,
Lamb
Hill Street. I don't know why I said we say Clapp Street. Thank you, but yes. So what we're trying to do as a team is look into ways that we can monetize some of those credits moving forward. And that's a process that will, be under Mike and James' supervision, and, all that money goes back to the town, regardless of kind of what's happening. In terms of the guarantee, that is something that once everything's 100% and we have control over all of them, that's when that guarantee kicks in. So it's a little bit of a longer process. Christine, do you have the number on what we gave back in end of the year funds?
We gave back, sorry. Didn't mean
Oh,
to
I was
cut.
gonna say, was it 280?
It was plus the prior year encumbrance, it was 316, I believe.
So that went back as part of our, closing the books at the end of the year.
Okay, one final question in regards to student head count. I see a lot of building. What does that look like this year? I mean, not school choice, I'm talking about local kids. Is that up? Is that down?
It's actually pretty consistent. We did see a small drop off. Our official numbers are October 1st. So once we have those October 1st numbers and I've shared those with the school committee, I would be more than happy to share them with the finance committee as well. We are anticipating some students coming in once the Norton Links complex is finished. I believe those are supposed to open at the end of this month or early October. We are anticipating some students there. There is a lot of building. Nothing's finished yet. We did have a few students leave, which is not surprising when you think about, outcomes of overrides. People decide to move on. But we're pretty consistent in the 2480 range.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, anyone else have any questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Steve.
is this a time we can ask questions regarding the financials that were provided to us? I think it was last week for the 6:30 numbers. for the
Sure.
schools. So just looking through and trying to again understand how the budgets work, I noticed several accounts that were overdrawn, and I'm just trying to understand, one is potentially why they were overdrawn. Two is, are they because of this type of funding that we don't see the transfers from reserve funds, grants, et cetera? And then if that's the case, when would we see those or detail of those transfers? So for instance, I'm looking at department chair stipends. If you could tell me, one, what that is, and then it's overdrawn or a credit balance in the account of almost $46,000. Is that intentional, or is that something we're going to be funding or transferring from some other reserve fund?
So ultimately, all of the transfers that we do are internal. We will, that bottom number always will remain the same unless we come to you at fall or spring town meeting and ask for supplemental. And what we'll do is we'll say, this is for special education. Out of district tuitions, we need $340,000, and those are funded directly towards those lines. Any other transfers that take place during the course of the year are approved by the school committee at one of our meetings. And typically those only take place if we move between, like, for example, special education and general education. Christine could probably give you a much more detailed understanding of that. That's why she's so awesome and my sidekick. But ultimately, the department chairperson stipends, those come from the high school. Many high schools have department heads that oversee their content area. So their role is to be the leader of that department, support professional development, curriculum alignment, writing curriculum, grading practices and policies. For the FY24 year, those positions were reduced, and then we came to an agreement with the union to reinstate them. Those positions no longer exist. Those were stipends that were eliminated as part of the FY25 1%. So those are not budgeted for this upcoming year. I did try to work with the department heads and the teachers union to find a way to bring those roles back without compensation, without financial compensation. We looked at ways that I could provide them with in-district credits or something along those lines, but ultimately we couldn't come to an agreement without a stipend. So Zach, that was a situation where I had to put my foot down and just say, unfortunately, we just can't afford it. So that's what that role is. Christine, do you want to add anything there?
The reason that line was in the red was because the end of FY23 for FY24, we did cut those positions. And then, as Dr. O'Neill said, we reinstated a portion after agreement with the union. So that's why that account ran into the negative. And the larger transfers between not just general education, special education, we provide you in the school committee documentation between salary and expenses as well.
Okay. So again, it was just from a strategic standpoint, you thought they were gone. So I understand that part of it now. So, and then the other one is substitutes. Can you tell me a little bit about the strategy there where we didn't budget So we have an overdrawn of $67,000. What was the strategy there, and where we didn't budget what we thought we were gonna use, even compared to previous years? Is this one of those that's gonna be funded by either reserves or grants, or this is kind of the way it works?
So substitutes are the most challenging, actually, that's not true. Substitutes and out-of-district tuitions are the two most challenging things that we try to budget for each year. It really varies year to year based on, just staff need. We at times have, a year with a significant amount of parental leave, um, where you're paying a teacher who has their sick time, their time to be home with a new child, and then you're also backfilling that position and making sure that we have someone in front of our students as well. It's very similar to those overtime accounts for police and fire, that it really depends on specific circumstances each year. Additionally, in years past, when the budget needed to be balanced, the subline was a place that we could cut and always backfill with school choice. We're always going to need substitutes. I don't know that we'll always have school choice. So Christine and I have made the conscious effort each year to add a little bit more to that line to try to make up that difference, and get to a place where we feel more comfortable with what that number is in the budget. So we do not have to rely on school choice as much as we have in the past. But that's where it's been backfilled from.
Okay, thank you.
Of
And
course.
then professional development, kind of surprised me that it was overdrawn $22,000. Is that, again, a strategy, or is that something that occurred we weren't anticipating?
So as part of my previous role, I led teaching and learning for 12 years, and I provided and designed all the professional development for the entire district. We have never had a professional development budget. The only money I ever had the ability to spend was funds that we received from our Title IIA grant. When I first took over my role back in 2011, it was roughly about $80,000. And it shrinks every year. I think this year we're about 52, 53. So that is something that we just really don't have a lot of money for professional development. Ultimately, that was backfilled with school choice funds. We had a need for specific training for teachers that we were no longer able to use that grant for, just because, as I said, that amount gets a little bit less and less each year. And we have used some school choice. School choice has actually been great to help us with some of those professional development needs. And that was how it was backfilled there as well.
So when you say about using school choice, does that mean that the school choice funded this, so it's really a zero net effect, or is it still a credit of 22,000?
Ultimately, when those lines were overdrawn, we may have moved them from another line to backfill that. But ultimately, if the funds don't exist, it always comes from school choice.
Okay. And I think just on a go forward, right, just trying to understand, and for an educational purpose, as we transfer from one line item to another, it'd be really helpful if we were informed on when those things happen, just to understand, again, the school budgets.
Yep, and I appreciate that. And so what we do, as Christine mentioned, when we do those major transfers, we do share all of those with the school committee. And as the governing board, I always think it's important for them to see those things first, and then we can include them as well with our monthly updates to the chair.
Yeah, no, it's great, because I think we have kind of overlapping responsibilities, so we need to understand it. So I have no problem when it comes, just information is definitely helpful.
Absolutely. And I appreciate all the questions. I think it's really important for us to have this back and forth dialogue, so that way everyone kind of understands the process and the dynamics, because it is extremely multifaceted. So thank you.
No, and I appreciate that, because that's one of the things we want to understand how that school budget works. It's the biggest one, and I think we have to dig into a little bit to understand it. So that's why, so all these questions, I apologize, but it's an education process. So I appreciate from both of you. Another one, just extracurricular salaries. It looks like it's the middle school and the high school. Between both of those, it's overdrawn 68,000. can you tell me what is that? What are those?
Okay, so those are clubs and activities for students. So for example, also, like if we have an art club, we have student council, all of these things. Our students pay fees to participate, excuse me, in any of those activities before or after school at the high school level. Our
Okay,
teachers have contractual stipends that they earn for advising those clubs. So what happens is that we collect a fee, and then whatever the fee doesn't cover, we backfill as part of the budget.
so in
So if
essence,
you have a
this-
child, no,
yeah.
please go ahead.
So in essence, this 68,000 is what we couldn't cover by the fees. This is the net.
Is
Net
that
cost, if you
Christine?
will.
Yeah, that's correct. And then also, if we had, instead of doing at the end of the year, for that example, a transfer that then we would show, we had money left over in say another salary line, but there was, there's so many accounts, there's so many transfers you're probably not gonna do. I've been a little bit tighter on the accounts. A lot of times they're really in the negative or really in the positive, but knowing that we had money left over in other salary accounts, that kind of helped offset. So we knew that things were the ebbs and flows of the salary of accounts of people going out on leave, not backfilling, or someone leaving, same in the spring, not backfilling, then we were able to run that in the red. So it looks a little more not as pretty, but that's kind of where that mindset went with that particular one. And so as Dr. Null said, whatever we don't cover with fees, we are hitting the budget. And that was another one of those that we, over the past several years before, that they would try to lob off the top when they did the cuts to reach the percent.
No, again, I think it's important to understand the strategy and how these reports are actually showing and what we do with them. And then my last one on this, I'm just curious, for the custodial salaries, right? It looks like it's overdrawn 22,000. What was the driver of that? And the one thing that really I was interested, it's not a tall or large dollar amount, but custodial admin travel overdrawn 3,000. If you could explain, one is what's driving the overrun in custodial salaries, and then what's a custodial admin travel? What's it for?
Okay, so custodial is another interesting one because of facility rentals. So for example, if we have a basketball league come and they're using the Yale gym, they are paying a rental fee to us to use the space because number one, we need to have a custodian on duty on Saturdays. Our buildings are not open on the weekends otherwise. So we need a custodian to be there. It's a 4-hour minimum, just like a police detail. And those rentals cover the cost of opening the buildings and having the custodian available. So oftentimes, those facility rental fees go into a revolving account and we're able to move those back and forth to make sure that, those are covered, but we don't always, you can't anticipate how often people are going to be renting out the spaces. In the past, we've been really collaborative with our local with our local organizations and trying to give them the best rate we possibly can. But that gets backfilled from the facilities revolving account. The second question about the admin travel. So we have a director of facilities, Wade Lazat, just like Christine or myself. He has meetings that he has to attend. They might be out of district sometimes. They might, whatever that may be. And we often, when you're looking to try to balance the budget, you might not account for that because it's, as you said earlier, it's a small item. And then you backfill that with facilities revolving as things come up.
Okay, all right, thank you both, appreciate it.
Of course. And I just want to comment on what Christine had just said a minute ago. She was talking about how sometimes we have salary savings at the end of the year. So just the way I showed you that list of all those staffing changes that have taken place since town meeting, those things happen during the course of the year as well. So a great example is last December, we heard from a high school staff member that they were going to be retiring in March. And so we couldn't have planned for it the year before. We had budgeted for this person to work with us through June 30th. So getting a day-to-day sub from March to June at $100 a day is definitely less expensive than paying this individual who has been teaching for 30 years their salary. So that's where those funds come from. And Christine and her office do a really great job of tying all those things up at the end of the year and putting them towards things like stipend or overtime as we are able to, you know, account for that.
Thank you so much, Dr. O'Neill.
Yes.
All
Can I
right,
mention one other thing to you before we go?
Mhm.
I know that the upcoming town meeting, we have a warrant for the MSBA, for the Massachusetts School Building Authority, to take a look at repairing the roof at Norton Middle School. The school was completed in 1998, which means that the roof there is now over 25 years old. For those of you who have been in town for a while, you'll know that we have had issues with that roof almost from day one. In the early to mid 2000s, there was some concern about ice melting and kind of sliding down some aspects of the metal roof. And what was done is holes were drilled into the metal roof to install almost like little tacks, which would break up the ice and allow the ice to melt, not in large sheets. They were really afraid of it falling and hitting kids. So they installed these tacks, and what happened is they voided the warranty when the roof was drilled into it. So I can't control any of that. None of you can control any of that, but we get to live with the ramifications of those types of decisions. So we have put together a warrant which would ask the community to approve the funding for the planning, the systematic design phase. We had the Mass Building Authority out here a couple weeks ago. Wade and I walked on the roof with them. And there's definitely a lot of places where we're having some issues. We've done some patching over the roof. It's the rubber roof. The large majority of it is just a rubber roof. You can see the patches. We do have like aesthetic areas which are metal, which is just rotting and just covered in rust. So that will come forward. We are not anticipating the systematic design phase to be very costly. And we actually think that this potentially could be something that we're able to fund through our facilities revolving account. However, we need to have that item on there as part of the process. We will not know if we've been accepted into the MSBA repair project until the end of October. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of it. I know Mike is aware, Nick as our chair is aware and has been involved in those conversations. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that as well.
Do you know what the estimate is right now for the design phase?
We don't. It's roughly I'm gonna guess 20 to 30,000. But that is our estimate at this time. We're anticipating the roof itself being about 4 million. That's I went to school to teach second graders how to read. That's my, rough estimate for you based on the work done so far.
So you think the revolving account would end up possibly paying the 20 to 30,000 for the design phase, but then hopefully.
Yeah, we would
getting
have to
grants
have
pay the
conversation. We would have to get
4 million.
town committee approval in order to actually do the repairs. And the reimbursement rate is about 58% currently.
Okay. Anyone else have questions about this warrant article?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Zach.
So the remaining roughly $2 million, assuming you get approved, is that something we're gonna be looking to fund through a debt exclusion, not to put any more burden on the budget?
Mr. Units?
Crickets, I hear crickets.
Or capital?
I would not look at it as a debt exclusion, but we would borrow it.
This wouldn't be a capital or be able to come from the capital budget at all.
It would. We would go through capital, but still would probably borrow.
I think it is important for everyone to know that, the schools have gone out for this project multiple times over the last several years. I think Joe and Wade went out for it at least twice during their 10 years together. And we were always turned down because of the age of the roof. It has to be at least 25 years old before they will even consider it. So this year for us is 26. And it really definitely is going to need it. The town meeting would need to approve the full amount once we know what that is. And then we would go through the reimbursement process.
All right, anyone have anything else for Dr. O'Neill before we let her enjoy the rest of her evening?
Madam Chair, can I just jump in quick?
Yeah, Nick, go ahead.
Just while I have the whole FinCom here, I feel like, obviously we're going to be approaching a budget season a lot quicker than we would all like to probably agree with. However, I just wanted to say, I know kind of at the end of last year, we kind of got hit with a few things that came up kind of late in the game, if you will, from, asking from FinCom or whatever. If we could, whatever you guys, need from us, the sooner you get it to us, the better. Obviously, we start our budget process, usually late January, early February. We're kind of, crushing through it as we go. So anything that you guys need, that if you're going to put together something, for all the other departments and, what you'd really like to see from the schools, the sooner you can get it to us, the better. I think it would just help us, and then obviously help with our collaboration here moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that, Nick. I know there was one thing that we discussed as a committee kind of late in the process. I'm sure you remember we were looking for a similar breakdown to salaries and longevity and incentives similar to what we see from the other departments. So yeah, looking forward to next year. I know that that's one thing on our minds that, we'd like to see in that way when the budgets are presented to us.
Like a quick cheat sheet for us would definitely help the school committee for sure. And I'm assuming it would help Christine and Jen as far as, actually presenting the full budget.
Paula, we did share that salary data with you this summer, and I just,
Yes.
we would create something similar. And so if the committee is looking for something different than what we shared with you this summer, please let us know, and we'll figure out what we can do.
Yeah, and I looked at that one, so I will work with the town, because there is a standard template that lists all the different components of pay, and what you sent was baseline salary, and I think the comment in there was these are in the annual report, and we're looking at it from a budget perspective for the current year, not historical salary data, lump sum. We're looking at the components. So it'll be base pay, longevity, incentive pay, very similar to what every other town department has. There is a template that Mike could probably share, and
Yeah, and I know, and I don't want to speak for Christine here, but the way that their system sets it up is very different. We need to hand enter all of that information. We just can't download it. So the way that our internal system works with the payroll, it's just very different. So if whoever has that template could share it with us sooner rather than later, that would be really helpful.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Zach.
Dr. O'Neill, does it make sense? I mean, for us, every other department comes to the committee and they present their budget for their individual department. You and Christine are kind of doing it for the whole school system, which is 80% probably when you fit 80% of the budget when you figure in fixing shit and everything else. I would like to see personally each individual principal come before us and present their budget for this school to say, okay, I'm the principal of the JCS. Last year I had, 27 teachers, 5 math, 3 janitors. This year I need this. This was my head count last year. This is my head count this year. I think not only does it help explain to us what exactly is going on, but it's kind of doing you a favor too by holding them accountable. Let them know they're under the same microscope that you are. Whether that's doable or not, I mean, I would like to see an administration budget, JCS, middle school, Yale, Onward and so forth, them come before us and present the budget. It is, I always say, you look at the largest budget. And, this committee spent 5 meetings talking about the dog officer for 10 grand or something. And we spent half a meeting talking about the school budget. So that's what my particular view would be. And I don't know how anybody else feels.
Why don't I
Yes.
talk with Christine and with the school committee to see what makes the most sense? When we're looking at our budget, the large majority of items at the building level, it's all staffing. Especially when you consider, what we use school choice for is a large portion of our curriculum, any materials and supplies. None of that is built into the regular budget at this point. That's all been cut over the years. But why don't we, talk about it and figure out the best way to make it work for us and make it work so that the finance committee feels like they have a better understanding of where it's all going.
I know
And the
one
policy.
change sorry, Zach. I know one change we are going to implement for when we're being presented the budgets is the school department's going to have its own meeting with the finance committee as opposed to your department being shared with other agenda items. You will be our only agenda item that night because it's just so much to talk about. And I think that we need to be dedicating more time to your budget. So I know that's something we discussed over the summer as a committee, and I know we will make that change. And whether or not it makes it feasible for the principals to join us that night, I think that would be your call and the school committee's call, but yeah.
Thanks. We appreciate it.
I think we've
Alright.
still got to be sensitive to the fact that the total school budget is a consolidation of all the other school budgets. So there'd have to be a vetting process within the school district that they're aligned to what principals are presenting. And I don't know how much complexity that adds to their budgeting process.
All right. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you
for
for
having us.
joining us.
I hope your
Yes.
night isn't too long. We appreciate
No, I
it.
think this was going to be the longest portion. So,
Have a great night. Thank you all.
all right. Thank you. Okay, Mike. Next up, town report submission.
Just wanted to know, the town report submissions due by the beginning of October. Usually what you put in the town report is what you had for the May town meeting. So I don't know if you want to look at that and then decide what you want to add or not to that.
Okay, it's due, what did it say at the beginning of October? you
October
said?
1st.
October
Yep.
1st, okay. Okay,
And the other item is the designation of a capital improvement representative from the FinCom.
was there someone representing from the FinCom on this committee previously? Zach, was that
Zach.
you?
Yes, I've been on it for a few years. I'll stay on it if nobody else wants it.
Anybody else want that job?
Oh, I think it's Zach's tab.
No one wants to fight him for it, all right. Zach, do we vote?
You should.
Okay. All right,
I make that as a
Okay.
motion, Madam Chair.
sure. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Bill. Okay, Kevin. Kevin, you with us? All right, Gavin,
Aye.
Steve,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Brandon,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Zach, you want to vote for yourself?
Abstain.
Okay. Bonnie,
Yes.
I too am a yes. 9 yes, 1 abstain. All right, Zach, the job is yours. Okay. Next up, the real fun.
Yep, reorganization.
So I've had so much fun this past year with all of you being the chair. But I would like to end my time for now,
Four
at
more
least.
years,
No.
more years.
But the job is really fun, so I'm gonna give you the hard sell on how fun it is to be the chair of the finance committee in the midst of an override year, but and doing 3 budgets. So that being said, we're gonna open the floor for any nominations for chair or vice chair. I'll start. I nominate Sandy Allerhead for chair.
I second.
All right. Anyone else?
I make a motion for Paul Sliker.
All right, Paul. Any
I'll
second?
second that.
Right. Anyone else throwing their hat in the ring, or are we gonna send this to a vote?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paul.
I would respectfully decline as a junior member of the
Hey, I
finance.
thought this was gonna be so fun. I was gonna start,
But thank you,
moderating a
Stephen.
debate.
But thank you, Steve and Zach.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none. The chair would entertain a motion to vote Sandy Allerhead in as our next chair of the finance committee.
So moved.
Okay,
Second,
wonderful. Okay, Kevin? No Kevin. All right, Gavin?
Yes.
Steve?
No.
Okay, Tracy?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Sandy?
Abstain.
Bill?
Yes.
Paul?
yes.
Zach?
Yes,
Bonnie?
Yes.
I too am a yes. 8 yes, 1 no, 1 abstain. Okay, Sandy, congratulations. The job is yours. But she needs a vice chair, people, so. All right, we're looking for another volunteer.
I recommend
Chair.
Paul Sliker if he'll take it.
Okay, nomination for Paul. Anyone want to second that?
second.
Awesome. Anyone else throwing their hat in the ring for vice chair? Equally fun job. Really is. Okay. All right, we will, but Sandy, you're now the chair, so you could entertain the motion.
Entertain a motion for Paul as vice chair.
Second.
Oh, I need a motion first, right?
Oh, sorry.
So moved.
So moved. And second.
All right, I'll take a roll call. Kevin? Is Kevin on or no?
I don't think
He
so.
left. I don't see him.
Gavin?
I'm on. Yes. Here.
Oh, he's here.
Yes.
He's here.
Gavin?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Trace?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes,
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I too am a yes. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Paul.
Thank you.
And the only other thing on the agenda was to decide whether you're gonna continue to meet in person or continue to meet remotely.
Yeah, I decided to put that on the agenda. I feel like every year since COVID, we've been just kind of revisiting this for our first meeting. So I found it appropriate for us to discuss it again. There's some new members. If anyone has any comments, what their preference is. It sounds like we have a fancy new town hall that we could possibly meet in, right? If we wanted to meet in person.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Zach.
although I like the convenience of the Zoom, it's much comfortable here at home. I think the people spent 35 million or whatever it was for a town hall. I think we've overstayed our welcome here. And I think we need to go back in person. I just think that's as comfortable as this is here. I just think that's how town business should be done. And every other committee is pretty much doing it except this one.
As long as we can still wear our PJ pants in person.
Can I just make one other comment?
Yes.
So the town hall, we won't be in the new town hall until the 23rd. And I would give it a week to make sure everything is running appropriately. So I don't know whether you want to continue remotely until the 30th of September.
What is everyone else thinking about? We've heard from Zach, but remote versus in person, possibly starting September 30th. Sorry, Sandy, I was kind of just because this was my agenda item.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll
Madam-
give my opinion that I do agree with going back to in person now that we have a location. I know that was a big issue before, is the location. We didn't really have a great one. Now that we do, I do think that meeting in person has its benefits.
I want to ask too, so this would mean there would not be a hybrid option for members, correct? Like either you're meeting in person or you would be considered absent, correct?
That's up to you to you have to decide that. You still could have a member participate remotely. The chair can't. Whoever's chairing the meeting has to be in person.
Would there need to be a certain number? I'm trying to remember. Would there need to be a certain number of members in person?
A quorum.
There would need to be at least 6 then in person. But those remotely would be able to vote?
They would.
Okay.
They wouldn't count towards the quorum, Mike? Why wouldn't they count towards the quorum?
Well, you should have a quorum in person.
Mike, is that should or required?
That's not required, no. And, you know, really, if you're gonna meet in person, the remote should be in an exceptional situation.
Yeah, I would hate to be that Sandy would be the only one showing up in person.
Would Paula wanting to stay in her pajamas be an exceptional reason, Mike?
Yeah.
No, I'll just be in my pajamas in person. You guys are gonna have to deal with it.
Madam Chair, whomever that.
Yes. Good.
Thank you, Sandy. Just speaking for myself, I think it's been really helpful for my own personal reasons to be remote, and we get all the business done that we need to get done. It's accessible to the public. When we were in person, of course, we didn't have a lot of space, but we did have some space. We didn't have a number of attendees, and we've basically had the same remotely. So if just stating the opposite opinion, I just would prefer to stay remote.
Madam Chair,
I think that was Steve first.
That was Bill first, sorry.
Oh, okay, Bill, sorry.
um,
Oh, and I'm not chair. Jeez, I'm gonna mute myself.
Madam Former Chair. Somewhat echoing what Bonnie just said, taking into account that the fall is a short season and we're already being told, well, you got to cut out certain weeks. I say start this for the spring and just stay remote for the fall because it's only going to be 1 or 2 meetings. once the town hall is up and running and ready for us. So I'd say just start it in the spring.
And I'm kind of a little bit in between. I think to require in person, but I also think we have the technology to make it work. So if somebody has to be remote, it should be accommodated. So
Madam Chair.
Kevin, go ahead.
I agree with Steve. I mean, I think most of us in the private industry now, you have meetings where folks are remote, but people are in person. And if we can accommodate both, I think that's the ideal situation. Not be hamstrung by an in-person quorum necessarily. That would be the ideal state for me. I think you do lose something by being fully remote, but you definitely, if we don't have to limit flexibility, why would we?
Madam Chair or former chair.
Bill?
This could be a more of a question for Mike. I remember, was it a year ago, year and a half ago, when we tried to do some of both, and the technology at the time was just so bad that there was, echoing and this and that and the other thing. Are we assuming the new town hall has figured that out and that wouldn't happen if you were doing a hybrid meeting?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know why we were having those issues, because like the select board has a hybrid meeting at the senior center, have no problems, but the town hall, all the conference rooms are set up so that we can Zoom from them.
Anyone else with thoughts?
Madam Chair, excuse me. Did I say it right? Am I doing it right?
Yes. got it.
Want to make sure I'm not screwing anything up. I too am from the private industry, and I manage a group of people, and I'd say hybrid is by far. I think you'd get. I know you said you'd revisit this every year, but I think you'd get more people interested in the finance committee with the flexibility. And I don't really think it takes anything less from if you have an in-person meeting versus hybrid. So I think I would agree with the hybrid approach personally.
Any other thoughts? So I guess I'm not trying to figure out which way people are leaning in terms of the motion. Do we want to wait until the spring? Do we want to move ahead now? I would agree when I said that I was in favor of going back in person. I don't have an issue with having people remotely zooming in. Zach, I don't know how you feel about that, because you also were in favor of in person. Are you okay with a hybrid?
I would be, as long as it's not me and you, Sandy, sitting there looking at each other. I mean, if I understand people travel and well, they got kids, everybody's busy. I get that, but I would think a hybrid's fine, but at least half the people should show up. I mean, if you're going to be remote 100% of the time, I just don't think, that's right. I think, people collaborating with each other, looking at each other face to face. We've been, I've been doing this. I don't know how many years I've been on now, but it's been always this. I mean, I don't think we ever, other than the joint meetings, we've ever sat in a room together and actually had discussions other than through the computer. But
Madam Chair.
Paul.
I guess I kind of want to echo Bill's suggestion about waiting until we reconvene he's saying spring, but I'm going to say winter, because I think we need to start meeting about the budget earlier. But I think, starting not until September 30th, and then possibly only having 2 weeks of meetings. And then what if there are technical issues or whatever, we need the time for those meetings to do our business and go through the articles. I don't want half the time spent dealing with technology issues. So to me, it makes sense to wait until January. And then, giving a hybrid option would be nice as well for those that wouldn't be able to meet in person for work or whatever reason.
And that was my intent, not like May.
What does everyone else think about that option?
Madam Chair?
Hi, Trace.
Hey, I agree with Paula, January. I'm fine with going in person. I like the face-to-face collaboration. I do feel something gets missed when we're at home.
Do we want to take a vote now to start in January, or do we want to wait until January to take that vote?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Gavin.
I suggest we wait until January when the weather is a little bit different before we vote on leaving the house.
I just want to say welcome again, Gavin.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone feel strongly that we take a vote now?
I do.
You want to take a vote now, Steve?
I do.
Okay. What would you like to take? What would your motion be?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that we start meeting in person immediately or when the town hall's available, but have the hybrid option available.
And you said immediately, right? Was your motion?
Well, whenever Mike says the town hall will be ready. I'm not
Okay.
sure if that's immediate or not, but
All right. Do I have a second for Steve's motion?
Second,
All right. I'll take a roll call vote. Kevin? So this is to start immediately, or when, I guess, September 30th.
With the hybrid option though?
Yes.
Yes.
Gavin?
No.
Paula?
No.
Steve?
yes.
Trace?
Yes,
Brandon?
Sorry, no.
Bill?
No.
Zach?
yes.
Bonnie?
No.
So I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 no's.
What about Paul?
I didn't hear Paul.
Did I miss someone?
Yeah,
Oh,
Paul,
sorry.
your vice chair.
Oh, sorry, Paul.
I'm a no as well.
You're no, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm a yes. I want to go ahead and start.
You want to start immediately?
My apologies. I got confused.
That's why you're the vice chair.
All right, so I guess I'm the tiebreaker then. I'll go with yes. So it's 6 yes, 5 no. And hopefully it's not just me and Zach at the table staring at each other. All right, do we have anything else?
No,
There was one
Minutes.
minutes, but yeah, nothing else from Mike though, right?
no. Good night.
Okay,
Thank you, Mike.
All right, so you sent the minutes out, Paula, correct? Did
Yeah, I
everybody,
believe it was April 24th.
did everybody receive the copy of the minutes? Any comments or changes?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
is Joe's first name actually Frank? Or was that a mistake?
That is his first name, yes.
Okay.
I think they spelled Zach's name wrong in the attendance. Isn't it A, right, Zach?
That is correct.
They got Yazikevich and Bouguet right though.
Hey, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
right, anything else?
How do you say your last name, Kevin?
Bouguet.
Bouguet? Okay. Silent J?
Yeah. There's a Polish joke in there somewhere. I mean, I don't know.
For an in-person meeting. We'll save that.
Yes.
After they turn the cameras off.
Any other changes? Are we ready to vote? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion made.
Second.
Kevin,
Yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Paula,
Abstain.
Steve,
Yes.
Trace,
Abstain.
Brandon,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Bonnie.
Do you have enough votes? Do you have 6?
Yes,
Okay, then I'll abstain because I wasn't there. I was sick.
and then I am a yes as well. All right, do we have anything else?
What's our meeting schedule, Madam Chair?
That's a great question. Madam Former Chair, do we have a schedule? Did you have a chance to talk about that at all yet?
Yes, well, a little bit. So he said that currently legal counsel is reviewing all of our warrant articles, and those will be ready for September 13th. So it sounds like next Monday, the 16th, we can start meeting on those articles. And I would have to look back at my notes on when we need to be done voting on all of the articles in order to get the warrant posted. 7 days, 10 days, I can't remember. But we'd be meeting weekly up until I think town meeting's October 21st, Monday, October 21st.
Yep.
So yeah.
Great.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
when do we want to have the discussion that we touched on a little bit earlier of what we want to see from the schools and other departments for at least the spring season? So at least we can give them some time that this is what we are looking for.
Yeah, good question. We're not, are we looking for anything for them for the fall specifically, or is this all the spring?
I would say the spring brings in a new budget year. This budget's kind of set. I don't know.
Yeah.
We have some supplementals. I don't know, but I would think we need to let them know now, or at least if they're going to start putting their budgets together around, I assume, the end of the year, first part of the next year as we get kicked off, we should probably at least give them some kind of direction of what we're looking for and let them come back to us, what they can do, what they can't do, so on and so forth. At least have a discussion on it.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Paul.
So last year we met, I think in September and November jointly with the school committee and the select board. I didn't know what the interest is now with the 3 boards to meet, prior to the holidays. I don't know if there's not a plan yet, as I haven't heard of any dates that have been thrown out, but I don't know if that's something we might want to look at for this fall to do a joint meeting.
Yeah, I think that would be great to keep that tradition going. Does that work for you, Zach, to wait until then?
Yeah, that's fine. Also, I do notice there's a couple select board members here tonight as well listening in. And we'd also talked about the select board actually, I don't want to upset the apple cart here, do what's in the charter and set direction to the finance committee of what the priorities are. That hasn't really happened in the past. So I'm not sure how that all gets orchestrated differently. But that's not what has happened in the past. And I think you brought it up, Sandy, last time that, that's how it should be. And that's what we have in the charter. And I agree. So I'm not sure, looking to the spring, how that's all going to play out.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Paul.
One of the other things now that we're going to be meeting back in person would be to have the assistant to the town manager put together the meeting packets for us. That'll actually save some of us trying to print a million things at our house and everything.
So you mean like a printed packet like.
Yeah, yeah, they used to do that. They used to give you actually a manual pretty much with everything in it and stuff that was gonna be voted on.
Yeah, I can make sure that Mike knows that we're looking for that.
Yeah, I just think that puts the right stuff in everyone's hands, you know?
So yeah, Zach, does it work for you to have all those conversations at the November meeting where we talk a little bit more about the budget process and how the three boards are gonna work through that in terms of the select board and what everyone's role is?
Yeah, as long as we have the conversation, I'm okay, as long as we have it before everybody gets too deep into their budgets. I have no problem with the timeline.
Yeah, I feel like November was early enough that people hadn't really made any plans at that point, so we could still be plenty of time to have people change their direction or decide the direction they were gonna go.
Madam Chair,
Huh?
just to clarify for the two new members of the committee as well, that as a rule, unless we need them to vote yes for a meeting that they weren't at as far as approving the minutes, we'll have them abstain in the future.
Yeah.
unless we- So,
Yeah, I think the general, procedure is that they can vote if, if they feel comfortable trusting what everyone else has voted.
Yeah.
It does get tricky sometimes with it.
yeah, in the past, we pretty much, as long as we had enough for the people that actually attended could approve it, that saves them the possibly the liability, if you will, of approving something that they didn't really attend. With that, I'll make a motion that we adjourn until next Monday.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second,
All right, Kevin,
yes.
Gavin,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Brandon,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes, and congratulations, Sandy and Paul.
Oh,
Second,
Tell me yes, and we will see you next Monday. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
have a good week.
Thank you all.